So after all the hype, all the excitement, sprint weekend, fresh new start, everyone came out of the gates fast, all the sessions were exciting, and then when it came down to the main event, it was boring. I review the Baku Grand Prix weekend, going through the sessions, and also talk about one incident that isn't good for Formula One. Hi, my name's Andy and I make videos for newcomers to Formula One. If that interests you, feel free to like and subscribe. Where do I start? It was kind of relentless weekend. Right from the beginning, from free practice one, the cars were out the gate straight away trying to get the laps in because they knew that this would be the only time that they could get on top of the car, get the setup right, and then which could dictate the rest of the weekend. On a sprint weekend, after free practice one, the setup is set. So if the driver is not happy with the setup after free practice one, they've then got to go into qualifying on the Friday night for the main race, go straight into sprint qualifying the next day, have the sprint race on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday, all with a setup that they're not happy with. So obviously a lot of the drivers went out early, tried to get the times in, tried to get comfortable with the car, tried to get the setup right. There was a red flag which stopped the session, which reduced the time on track, which wasn't ideal for most people. Fell into Mercedes' hands because they were having brake issues in free practice one. So the reduced running for the other teams also helped them be on a level playing field. Everyone pretty much locked in the setup. Everyone was pretty much happy with the setup, apart from one person, Carlos Sainz. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't get the setup that he was happy with, so that hindered him for the rest of the weekend. And as you can see, as we went through all the sessions, he wasn't as good as his teammate Leclerc. You can say Leclerc is a better driver than him, but usually Sainz is closer than what he was at the Baku weekend, and he even admitted that the setup just wasn't right. In hindsight, I think the rule makers should think about, for sprint weekends only, you could think about letting them tweak the setup on the Saturday as well, so that then it gives variables for the race day, and it won't be, for example, if you let them lock in a setup after free practice one, and have to do qualifying and the sprint races, and then after that they can change the setup if they want to for the main race, and that would be a good way of mixing it up. But then as we went through the weekend, obviously Leclerc got pole position for both the races, the main race and the sprint race. Aston Martins had DRS issues in both the qualifying sessions, but luckily that was sorted for both the races. And yeah, so it was a good interesting sessions up to then. Then the races came in on Saturday. The start of the sprint race was exciting with Russell and Verstappen getting head to head, having a contact, and after that race Verstappen went to George and obviously called him a dickhead, which was entertaining to see. After all this excitement, all these red flags with all the qualifying sessions and the free practice session, and then we got into the main event, the race. Unfortunately, the race wasn't as interesting as it could have been, but it is interesting to see that Perez came out on top of Verstappen. No matter what you say, I believe people say he got lucky with the safety car, but before the safety car came out, you could see that it was closing in on Verstappen. Verstappen was struggling with his tyres. I believe Perez could have pulled off the move, and I'm really annoyed that that safety car issue stopped the potential of a Perez overtake or Perez getting in front of Verstappen. But you know, he got lucky with the safety car and he ended up being in front. And 9 times out of 10 on any other track apart from this street track or any street track, we would see Verstappen breeze past Perez. But for some reason, Perez really does enjoy street tracks. This is his 5th win for Red Bull, and all 5 of these wins come on a street track. So he does well on street tracks, even though he brushed the wall. He brushed the wall quite hard coming in the turn into turn 15, I believe, but he got away with that and he pulled off the win. Perez has got a spring in his step. He's bouncing down the paddock, he's bouncing down the grid, and he actually thinks he's got a chance of winning. Verstappen, after the race, was surprisingly calm with his comments. Normally, you'd expect him to be annoyed being beaten by Perez, but he was surprisingly calm. To me, it seems like he is very comfortable with the situation, very comfortable with Perez getting this win on a street track, and he will see that he was unlucky with the safety car. And he even said that coming up to normal tracks, normal road tracks, normal high-speed corner tracks, he would easily come out on top. You can easily tell that he feels that way. Touching on that one incident that isn't good for F1, It's the FIA that got it wrong, which is pretty scary, because they should know what they're doing, and it's professional photographers as well that came out. Basically what happened was Ocon started on the hard tyres, and as you know, when you start on hard tyres you can go really long, whereas the rest of the grid started on a softer compound of tyres, so they pitted early. So Ocon, he was staying out long, and with the safety car it disadvantaged the people who started on hards, who were going for a long stop. So they were basically trying to goal hang. So goal hanging is where they're staying out for as long as possible, and hopefully another safety car will happen so that they can have a cheap stop. When you pit under the safety car, you lose less time than you would at racing conditions, and that's because when you're pitting in the pits, when you're stopping in the pits under the safety car, the rest of the people on the track have to go at safety car speed. So that means they won't travel as far whilst the person's in the pit box. So Ocon was staying out as long as possible on hard tyres, hoping for a safety car so that he can have a cheap stop. It's mandatory in F1 that you have to do one stop, and you have to run on 2 different compounds of tyres. So everyone knows that he has to do his mandatory stop from changing to hard tyres to a softer compound of tyre. And he was staying out right until the end, and he was going to do it on the last lap, his very last lap. But for some reason, the FIA officials have had this unwritten rule that on the last lap they start getting park fermé open early, and they let the photographers come out early so that they're ready to take pictures for the press and for social media, etc. So they were doing this as normal, but for some reason they weren't following the race, and they didn't fully understand that there was still one person to come in to the pits to stop for their tyres. And barreling around that corner, barreling into the pit stop is pretty straight, and then barreling around the corner, Ocon didn't know that they were there. No one told him that people were going to be out there in front of him. But luckily, nothing bad happened. He was paying attention. And to be fair to Formula 1 cars, when they're going at pit lane split limiter speed, at that speed, Formula 1 cars can stop really quickly. So even if someone did go in front of Ocon, they would have stopped. He would have been able to stop pretty quickly. But that shouldn't have been the case. That he shouldn't have been lifting and slowing and people jumping out of his way, and him seeing these kind of things down the pit lane. It's not safe, and it's unfair on Ocon, because even though he wasn't properly racing, he had to slow down, and that made him spend longer time in the pits than he would have done. But obviously there's no mistakes in life, only lessons. And then from the next race onwards, the FIA will be changing their procedure and will be more safer than they were before. But I don't know how to feel about the overall Baku weekend. It was so much excitement going into it and so much hype. There was just too much critical sessions, I believe, and it kind of diluted the main event a little bit. It diluted qualifying. Having qualifying on a Friday afternoon when people are at work, and it's not the main priority of focus. That wasn't ideal. That 100% diluted qualifying. Then the race on Sunday, to be honest, kind of got overshadowed with the other sessions in the weekend, like the sprint race. Granted, after the red flag and after the argy-bargy between Verstappen and Russell, who did get a bit follow the leader. But yeah, you could argue that the sprint race was a bit more exciting than the main race. So, it's interesting, and it's interesting to see what other people think and what F1 thinks. But maybe moving qualifying, if you're going to stick to the sprint weekend format, maybe moving qualifying onto the Saturday, because that is a main qualifying, and having a sprint qualifying on a Friday, because that's for the lesser race, so to speak. You can't have the main qualifying when people are at work. That's something that you shouldn't be doing for a main qualifying session like that. So up next is Miami. So straight from Baku, we're going to Miami for USA. So that's going to be an interesting race. That's going to be an entertaining race. That's a street track. That's where all the celebrities were coming out. So we'll see some celebs there. Unlike Baku, the grid walk, there's no celebs on the grid walk. This time we'll have Martin Brundle. We'll set up some A-listers, some American A-listers, some, it's going to be a crazy race, entertaining weekend for people there. Hopefully an entertaining race as well. Feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.